Alright, so what we're looking at today, as all of you love the DBQ, we want to figure out some things that can help us do better on the DBQ, namely what we want to avoid. So we're going to go through some mistakes that are commonly made, so you won't make those mistakes too, as well as some things that would do really well if you put that in the DBQ. So, document-based questions, what to avoid doing. Alright, the first thing that you want to avoid doing is writing I think. Now, all of you have many fantastic thoughts, however, I don't care what you think. And that's not mean, it's simply true. For a DBQ, we don't want to put our opinions in there. All you're trying to do is prove a point. So if you're writing things like, I think they should have done this, I think they should have done that. Number one, in many cases our DBQs are taking place hundreds, thousands of years ago. So whatever they should or would do doesn't matter. But also you're ignoring the facts of the case and you're trying to change it. You just want to focus on what are those facts, not about what you would do to make things better or change the scenarios from happening. So I don't care what you think, don't write it. So if you write I think, just cut that out and just start the sentence with the next word. So that's my main suggestion. So if you ever see anywhere on there that says I think, cut it out. Same ways with anything that says I. There shouldn't be any first person or second person. So you are not involved in the scenario that the DBQ is about. And same thing, I am not either. So if you are writing, if you did this, Mr. Shea is not sitting in ancient Mesopotamia worrying about his hands being cut off. I did not live that far back, I'm not that old. Close, but not that old. So don't refer to the reader as a you. Also don't refer to what you think at all. Alright, the next thing that often students add in that is something that we want to avoid is thinking about the what-ifs, the theoreticals, the maybes, the probablys, and the what-ifs. So we want to avoid all of those because for a DBQ we're focusing on the facts. So if you're making up scenarios, well, what if this happened? Then it could be okay. For DBQs, we want to focus specifically on what we can see, what the documents are telling us. So if you're proposing things that aren't seen in the documents, then we want to avoid them. So even if it's a really great question, we don't want to get into that because you can't prove a what if. Since it's theoretical, there is no evidence that says that it's true or it's not true. So even though it might be true, if it's not in those documents or in any background knowledge that you have about the topic, you don't want to write about it at all. Alright, this is a popular one and one that we cannot have. And it's making statements that we can't prove. You're making inferences. So if we're looking at Hammurabi's code, we could assume that many people were punished. We can't give numbers because we don't have those numbers in our documents. So if people are saying thousands of innocent people are dying, that's not true because we don't have that evidence. Also, if you're making a broad generalization, that's also not going to be true. So stick only to the facts that we have. Don't try to hype it up in a way that gets the reader's attention. But just because we have their attention doesn't mean that's a good thing. Because if we're drawing their attention with facts that aren't actually facts, and we're stretching the truth a bit, then the reader's going to get annoyed that we're presenting pieces of information that aren't accurate. Our next one kind of relates to that last one, which is hyperboles, exaggerations. We don't want to use words that are going to be difficult to prove. Namely things like always, never, completely. If you use always or never, then in every scenario, that's true. And in most scenarios, if I said women were always punished under Hammurabi's code, it's probably not true. We can't prove that in every single scenario with women they were punished. Maybe in many cases, in some cases, but we can't use always or never because we don't know that's accurate. So avoid those words and just simply state what we do know. In many laws, women were not treated well. And then the reader gets it. All right, so in your DBQs, you have to refer back to the documents. Now, documents are not living things. They are not entities that breathe. They are not entities that absorb oxygen. So we are not going to write that they say anything because they are not saying things. They are not speaking to you. However, documents do state, they describe, documents explain, but they do not say anything. So don't use that word. All right, next we get some good stuff, so things that we should do. All right, what we need to do, number one, which makes you look wicked smart, is use quotations. So we need quotations, quote different parts of those documents. Then what you need to do with those quotations is explain them. So if you have a quote, quote it, explain what document it's from, so cite the document, then tell the reader what that quote means, so that the reader understands that you know what that quote meant. If you stick a quote in there and then just jump into something else, you're going to leave that quote abandoned, it's going to be sad and alone, and no one's going to really know why it's in there. So you want to explain a quote if it's in there. Then you need to explain how it proves your thesis. So quotes are awesome as long as you explain what it means and how you're using that quote to prove your point. Some other things that we want to do are really using as many documents as we can, just so you keep telling the reader why your points are valid, why you have proof that proves it. So those are the two main things for a DBQ. That's what we're looking for. Can you prove the thesis that you made? So as long as your thesis is clear and you're using evidence, especially direct quotes that proves it, you're going to be perfectly fine. So have fun. You're going to do great. Follow those suggestions, and we'll have the greatest DBQs of all time.